Hey there and welcome to this tutorial on Sea Power's weapon systems. There are a lot of weapons in the game, and this video, although it be brief, I'm going to try and give an extensive overview of the weapon systems that you can find in the game. Thankfully, the game's systems do explain most of these weapons quite well. If you right click on a unit and go to unit reference, you can see the unit reference card, and with that you can see most of the missiles and most of the weapon systems and see what they do and see what they are. But here's the quick overview. Essentially, we have a couple of different weapon systems aboard these ships. In the case of this aircraft carrier, I have the RIM-7. This is a surface-to-air missile. So the first weapon type is missiles. It can be a surface-to-surface type missile, so from one ship to another ship. It can be a surface-to-air ship missile, so from a surface ship to an aircraft. It can be from an aircraft to a ship. It can be from an aircraft to an aircraft. You have all types of different missiles. Let's start out with the anti-ship missile. In this case, it's going to be a Harpoon, as launched by this Ticonderoga class cruiser. The Harpoon is a radar-guided missile. This means it has its own radar guidance, its active radar homing. It has an own radar in the seeker cone of the missile. This has advantages, because it means you can launch that thing without having to use your own radar. In this case, I have an aircraft up here. This is Bluetail 1, it's an E2C, and it is actually spotting the ships over there. I got a merchant and an alligator. They need to go. So all you need to do, once you have that thing detected, is select the Ticonderoga and have your missile. So click either left click and then right click, or right click on the missile button, and you can either do single shot, salvo 2, 4, or 8. I think a single shot right now will do, as we're trying to get rid of this merchant. Of course, the bigger the ship, the more missiles it might need. Now, the easiest way to go about it is just to right-click the target. This way, the missile is going to launch. Once you have that missile in the air, in this case of the Harpoon, I can't actually interact with it. I can have a look at it, I can see how fast it's going, I can see where it's going, and because I have turned on map layers, weapon seekers, I can see what it is trying to spot. So I can see how wide its search cone is. If something happens to be found inside of that search cone, it will engage it. Therein also lies the problem, to some extent. Because this means that if something is not inside the seeker cone, the missile is going to try and look for something beyond that. So let's say that this missile happens to not find this merchant, but instead finds another civilian target behind it, it will try and kill that. So this seeker cone is definitely a very important thing to note. How far can my missiles see and what can they shoot? Moving on to the second type of missile, the air-to-air missile. There's a couple of different variants of these, because we have a couple of different ways of engaging other aircraft. In this case, this F-14 has an AIM-9L. This is a relatively short range at 9 miles, heat-seeking missile. It just looks for something warm, something really hot, like an engine. And once it finds that, it's going to try and kill it. It's going to try and just jam the missile right into that point. There's no way to mid-course correct these things. There's no way to change where they're going. This is an infrared air-to-air missile. The challenge with these things is, if you're in a situation where you have several of your own aircraft, they might go after your own aircraft if they happen to miss one target and then go for another. The second type that we have is the AIM-7 Sparrow. Now, the Sparrow is a different type of missile in that it has semi-active radar homing. This means that the missile itself has no radar, but the aircraft does. This F-14 has its own radar. So as long as I'm painting this this Tu-95 with my own radar, by having my own radar active, I can use the AIM-7. If I turn that radar off, I'll not be able to use it because it needs a radar source, so rather a radar return signal. So I'm bouncing my radar off of the Tu-95, and that's where the missile is going. And then you got the AIM-54. This is active radar homing, so very similar to the RGM-84 in the sense that it has its own radar and will look for targets all by itself. But it has radio command mid-course correction. And this means that this missile can be guided onto a target. So let's launch an AIM-54. In this case, I only carry one of them. I'm going to launch that against that aircraft over there. Once you do engage with an aircraft, it goes into combat mode, so that's why I tossed the drop tank, and there's the missile. You can now see that the status of the F-14 here is guiding AIM-54A. All the time that you're guiding this thing, you need to keep your nose at the target. And for the AIM-7Ms, this is especially true, because the moment that you turn your radar away, you'll not be able to use the aircraft's radar in order to illuminate the target. So in that case, you won't be able to engage that, or you won't be able to turn that missile into a missile that actually goes after a target. Of course, I can tell this aircraft to change course right now, but it will refuse, because it's still guiding the AIM-54. At this point, the AIM-54 also says, yep, I'm linked, and now it says I'm no longer linked. I have lost connection. But I do have my own radar, and now it's looking for a target. So that's the seeker cone of the AIM-54. And at this point, that Tu-95 is getting mighty worried, as well it should. So the initial part was the aircraft guiding the missile, and then the aircraft decided to change course. The missile said, okay, sorry, I don't know where the target is anymore, but I have my own radar, so I'm going to find it all by myself. Regarding air-to-surface missiles, in this case an air-launched anti-ship missile. There are a couple of different ones. They work pretty much the same way as you have seen before. In this case, I carry the AS-4. It's a very big missile, but I only carry one of them. This is very, very straightforward. Active radar homing, range 100 miles to 180. So this AS-4 Kitchen, or the KH-22, supersonic standoff anti-ship missile. Very straightforward. The only thing you need to do is tell it where to go. I want you to kill this. The missile says, okay, goodbye, and you can turn your aircraft around. You don't have to guide this thing, you don't have to talk to it anymore. You can just strike and have the bombers go back to base. That does make these things very potent. Now, when it comes to missiles, or rather defending against missiles, the problem can be, can you fire enough of them? Can you fire enough missiles to overwhelm the anti-ship missile defenses? The anti-missile defenses, or rather, the missile defenses that ships have. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It depends upon the situations, but it's, well, there's a lot of ifs and buts. Let's not go into that this time around. Time for the next missile type, surface-to-air missiles. Anything that is airborne can be targeted by a surface-to-air missile. The question is it in range? If not, try to get into range, and otherwise, well, you're just going to be looking at that target unless you send some other platform after it. What I've added this time around is a Kirov-class battlecruiser, and this guy over here is most likely going to be spotting us. That's the Tu-95. That means that the Kirov will have launched all of its missiles at my aircraft carrier group. They know exactly where I am. I know that the Kirov is somewhere towards the north, so now I have to defend myself. Seeing as I happen to know where the threat's going to come from, I'm going to reorient my battle group. So I'm going to go formation, edit formation. I want to have all my missile-capable ships up front. I want to have the Ticonderoga and the Yorktown over there, and the Sacramento can stay back, because that's, well, it's a logistics ship. It doesn't really have many defenses all of its own, although this one does come with the RIM 7. As long as you are capable of detecting the missiles in time, you should be able to defend against it. So if you know that there's a threat inbound, and the game kind of gives it away when there's a missile in the sky, because the time acceleration will not go faster than 10 times. So in that case, turn on your radars and go, hold on. There is some threat, and I should now be very, very worried. Of course, if you are more advanced, then yes, you can go for electronic warfare against it, but that is covered in another tutorial, a separate tutorial. So we're not going to go into that right now. For now, all you need to know is that we have anti-ship missiles coming towards us. An anti-ship missile is an airborne unit, and as such can be targeted by anti-air missiles or surface-to-air missiles. It is... There we go. We already got a warning. It is not something that you can shoot with, for example, a Tomcat. It's not like an aircraft is going to go after it. You, unfortunately, cannot send a wave of Tomcats with missiles to go after these anti-ship missiles. But hey, we did at least pick them up early, and that means we can start to defend ourselves against it. Your ships will defend themselves automatically, as long as they are set to weapons tight or weapons free. Weapons tight means defend yourself. Weapons free means go on the offense, so any anti-ship missiles that you have, shoot those. Weapons hold means don't shoot anything. There's an anti-ship missile coming in, tough. You're just going to have to tank it, which in this case means almost never. Tanking anti-ship missiles is essentially not a factor. Now this is also a nice time to show you what these SSN-19s can do. These are anti-ship missiles that are active radar homing, so they do go for a large target. But these SSN-19s are very clever. Unlike harpoons, they talk to each other. And they figure out, okay dude, you're going to take the left target, I'm going to take the right target, I'm going to take that target. One of these tends to stay up a little higher than the others. And it tends to try and sort of talk to the others and talk them onto a target. At some point, even that missile is going to go dip lower and is going to go for the target. So we're going to accelerate until the point where my missile defenses are going to start acting. At this point, the missiles probably have my surface group detected, and there we go. My missiles are already coming off of the ships. My ships are defending themselves against those incoming missiles. So we got the longest range missiles going out, the SM-2MR, and you can see what they're trying to hit. Track 7004. Which is the lead anti-ship missile here. Then you can also see by the green lines that there are additional missiles coming in, and they are immediately getting engaged. But we haven't detected all these anti-ship missiles yet, so we cannot defend against all of them at the same time, at least not yet. But give it a minute. Unfortunately, an anti-ship missile threat such as this, where the Kirov fires its whole battery, is difficult to defend against. It's not impossible, but you do need a fairly sizable group of missile-capable ships in order to deal with all of those tracks. So you can definitely see that my ships are trying to throw as many missiles into the sky, and you can see that some of these are getting intercepted. One of them has been intercepted, that was 7004, so that initial track. You will also miss. Some of your missiles cannot find their target, some of your missiles are going to go, okay, I don't know where to go, and as such, they will, there we go, we might get that one. They'll just miss. So you'll likely be spending more missiles defending yourself from incoming anti-ship missiles than there are anti-ship missiles. For example, if there are 60 anti-ship missiles coming in, you might fire 25 or 30 interceptors against it. Some ships are very good at reloading those missiles. Some of them are not. The RIM-7, for example, takes about 30 minutes to reload. So in that case, you can only launch what you have available, which is generally 8 of them, and then it's good luck after that. What you'll also see these ships do is use their guns. Guns are fairly lackluster when dealing with incoming ship missiles or incoming missiles of any type, but sometimes they get lucky. They can also be used against aerial targets in a pinch. If these missiles continue to close and are not getting intercepted, you will see another weapon type join the fray, which is the close-in weapon system. You can see even the carriers launching missiles now. There's just one big blob of missiles going back and forth. We did get that one, but there are a lot more coming. Let's see if this one's going to get close. You saw this one made a course correction. It has decided to go for something else. It decided to go for the biggest target right there, the carrier. Lovely active radar homing. My missiles have missed. And I think at this point we will see the CIWS take action. There. CIWS, close-in weapon system. You can see one here. That's a close-in weapon system. That's the Phalanx. Different types for different ships. And it's just basically trying to put up a wall of lead. Trying to throw as many rounds at that one missile as possible. And trying to stop it. But unfortunately, it did not work. It is, however, still trying to defend against another missile. And it did splash that one just off the carrier. So the carrier got lucky and did not get hit again. But having been hit twice, this is quite likely the end of the carrier. At any rate, surface-to-air missiles against incoming missiles, you don't have to worry about those. Your ships will most of the time do that automatically. When it comes to an aerial target, if a ship is set to weapons tight and an aircraft ventures into their range, they will not shoot it, because shooting another unit is considered an offensive action. So in that case, you'll have to go weapons free, and the ship will engage enemy aircraft as they're closing in. Now in this case, the Russians definitely pulled a number on us. The Chandler is down. Yorktown is fine, but Ticonderoga is dead. McCluskey is dead. The carrier is most likely not going to survive, having sustained heavy hull damage. They're probably in dire straits. So this missile strike from the Russians inflicted a lot of damage. Didn't fully make this battle group inactive or ineffective. But, I mean, since the key of the ship, or the key of the battle group is dead, the carrier, yeah, it's not that likely to survive. Moving on to torpedoes. I have the K218 over here. This is a Victor III class attack submarine. My target, a liner, is in front of me. I can engage this target using torpedoes, but some of these torpedoes have different ways of using them. So, for example, the 6576 is a wake-homing torpedo. It doesn't actually listen for the ship, it tries to find its wake. And the wake of the ship is that large amount of splash behind it, which I think in sea power should be far bigger, but this is what we have right now. These wake-homing torpedoes are not great in my experience, because they tend to miss more often than not. Also, you have to keep in mind, don't launch a torpedo or a missile where the target is. Launch where it's going. You're trying to hit the spot where it's going to go. If I want to have a better chance of engaging, I best use the USET-80. This is an active/passive sonar homing torpedo. So this means it has an active sonar and a passive sonar, and it can listen to targets all by itself. And it can also ping targets all by itself using active sonar. This torpedo can be used in two roles. It can be used in anti-submarine and anti-surface, so it's very versatile in that sense. There's also something called a dumbfire torpedo. These are typically the older torpedoes along the spectrum. They don't have any guidance. You just send them out in front of the submarine or the launching vessel, most of the time a torpedo boat, and you hope for the best. If you managed to intercept the target, then congratulations, you've just killed something. If you didn't, your torpedo is going to sail past harmlessly. In this case, I want to engage that particular target there, that liner, with one torpedo. So let's go with one torp and send it after that liner. The bow door is going to open, the torpedo is going to sail right after that target. Now, these 6576s are known as carrier killers. They're extremely big torpedoes. And that also means you don't carry a whole lot of them. Let's see what this wake homer is going to do. It is, of course, not nearly as fast as a missile, because it's only doing 50 knots. And this means it will take quite a lot more time to catch up to targets. This is also where torpedoes have a bit of a caveat that missiles generally don't have, or at least not as much. If your target is running away, now I wouldn't call this liner running away, but let's say I'm trying to hunt this aircraft carrier, and this aircraft carrier goes ahead flank, then it's running away at 25 knots, and some ships can go even faster than that. So if I'm trying to send a torpedo after this carrier, it's gonna not only have to maneuver all the way there, but it'll also have to catch up to it. So it's gonna have to close the distance between the submarine and the aircraft carrier now, and then the distance that, let's say, the aircraft carrier has moved since the last time that you launched that weapon. So in that case, you might not have enough juice on your torpedo, and it might run out of fuel. When it does, your torpedo just harmlessly explodes and does nothing. So when you're launching torpedoes, keep in mind what is their active range. And ideally have a bit of a margin of error. So let's say that I am intending to use the USET-80. I have a range of 9.72 miles. I'm going to go over here to drawing tools. I'm going to say, okay, this is my launching platform. I'm going to chart a course of, let's say, or chart a range of about 9.7. If something is within that range, I can probably engage it. However, if that unit is, let's say, coming, or if I detect it over there and it's going towards the other marker, it's not only going to have to travel that distance, but also towards the other point, towards the intercept point. And that might not happen, because you don't have the runtime. In reverse, if something's over there, and it is coming towards you, and you know, or at least can reasonably expect that it will continue moving towards you, then you can launch a missile, or a torpedo in this case, in that general direction. At this point, there might be something out there, there might not. We simply don't know yet. But if this is going to come into range, that torpedo will most likely have enough juice. Now, this wake-homing torpedo has more or less caught up. And once it does, you can see that it starts to make some sort of course corrections. This is when it's trying to find the wake. So it's trying to search left, search right, search left, search right. And eventually, it's going to go, aha! I have found the wake. I have found my target. That is where I'm going to explode. This is the origin of the wake, these propellers. So the torpedo has found its mark. Now, much like with a missile launch, you can sort of backtrack the launch from a torpedo. If there was indeed something over here, it could fire back along the line of the torpedo course. So in that case, it can be very useful with torpedoes, especially if they're wire guided, to change their course. Unfortunately, this one, the UZ-80, offers no mid-course corrections. So in this case, you might want to move the submarine itself. If you have, for example, a target that you're engaging over there, you just launch the torpedo at it. In that case, try and go at a 90-degree offset and increase speed. Don't be where the enemy is going to expect you to be. Because if they do fire a snapshot, so a quick torpedo back in your general direction, that torpedo might follow that line, that marker over there. And when it does, it's going to go, oh, you're still right there. Okay, cool, now I'm going to eliminate you. If you are, however, not there and you're outside of the seeker cone, which for torpedoes in this case, by the way, is tiny, you'll definitely be able to escape. Some torpedoes are really good at finding their targets. Some torpedoes are awful at finding their targets. Especially the Mark 48s, the American torpedoes are very good. Let me show you how that works. In this particular scenario, I have a Los Angeles class submarine, and I'm trailing a hostile submarine. I don't exactly know what it is, but as we're getting more information about it, we will definitely be able to narrow down what type of target it is. I do know that it's hostile. Now the LA, the Los Angeles, carries the Mark 48 torpedo. They also carry anti-ship missiles, by the way, but that's a different story. These torpedoes can be wire-guided. And that is when the fun begins. Because this means I can launch a torpedo not at the target, but towards the general area where the target might go. So I'm going to launch a torpedo at an offset. Confirmed. I'm not going to launch the torpedo towards where I want it to go. I want to launch the torpedo off to the side. As this torpedo is making a lot of noise, at least briefly, that means that I have lost the contact in front of me. So I can't detect that for a couple of seconds. Now this torpedo can be course corrected because it's wire guided. You don't actually see that wire, but it is wire guided. So I can right click here and tell this torpedo to change course. And this is extremely useful. Because this means I can pretend that that torpedo came from somewhere else. I know that this guy is still heading north. I'm going to now launch this torpedo, or sorry, I'm going to tell this torpedo to course correct. The torpedo is doing 50 knots. Last time I checked, the submarine is doing about 20 knots. So sooner rather than later, we should catch up to it. But he might try and fight back. He might, if he hears that torpedo, go, hold on. That torpedo, I'm going to shoot right back along the line of that torpedo. And unfortunately for him, there's nothing there. Because this way, I have a torpedo coming from a direction, and if they track that back, there's nothing there, because I dog-legged it, as they call it. I sent it one way first, and another way second. And that is a very, very powerful feature of the Mark 48. Not all torpedoes can do this. Wire-guided torpedoes can. But sometimes you might not have the option because you have lost the wire, as it is called. You are unable to get the wire, or you're unable to maintain connection to the torpedo. And at that point, you will just have to, well, hope that your torpedo finds something. You will not be able to issue any additional course corrections. So that is how you can change the course of torpedoes. As long as they're wire guided, you can change these things. There we go. Yeah, they're definitely snapshotting, so they're fighting back with all the torpedoes that they can. And because I've maneuvered the torpedoes so much, I now actually have undone most of what I did. Because they tried to fight back against the torpedo, but you can see that they're not exactly going to be on target against my submarine. Ideally, I would have done it in a couple of different legs. So a couple of different parts of the journey, if you will. I would have sent the torpedo from my submarine first there and then there. And once I did that, you will have seen that the torpedoes were sent towards that direction. So that's how you can change the course of torpedoes, and you can change where the intended target might fight back. Another type of weapon that you can use against submarines is the RUR-5. This is basically this missile launcher that you see up front. It is a missile strapped to a torpedo. This means that you can rapidly deliver a torpedo to another location. So let's say that I know there's a submarine over there. I'm going to use the RUR-5. I'm going to send one off. You can see that it is a missile booster. Then there's the torpedo. And what this thing does is just fly a sort of parabolic arc, so it goes up real high, and then it comes down, and it just drops the torpedo right into the water. There you go. You can see that this has a very tiny seeker cone. These Mark 46 are lightweight torpedoes. And now it's going to look for a submarine. The Mark 46, as a torpedo type, cannot look for surface targets. So don't worry dropping these among your own aircraft carrier group, if it has come to that. Because your torpedo will not find surface ships. Of course, ideally you wouldn't have this happen, because this has a relatively low range, and means that there is a submarine 6 miles away. And as I've shown you in the submarine, or the torpedo type, it is possible that at that point you're already gone. You will not be able to survive a submarine at 5 miles most of the time. Some Russian warships are also equipped with the RBU-6000, and that's the last weapon type I'll cover. The RBU-6000 and the RBU-1000 are anti-submarine mortars. It's basically a depth charge. That's the closest proximity to what you can get. I know that there is a submarine fairly close to the Kirov. Of course, ideally it's way too close, but that's a different discussion. I'm going to shoot the RBU-6000 at it. The RBU-1000 only has a range of half a mile. The RBU-6000 had a range of 3 miles. So first we're going to have to close the distance, and then we should be able to engage that submarine. We've closed the distance to 2.92 miles, and I'm going to use the RBUs against this Alpha over here. Sometimes the ship's going to change course, sometimes it isn't. You can see it just uses this launcher right on the bow in order to sort of saturate that area around the Alpha with depth charges. And let's see, we should be able to see them coming in. There's the Kirov. There. Splash, 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 splash. They're just dropping into the water. And once they're there, this submarine is most likely dead. It's probably sustained severe damage at this point. And if not, you can just give them another dose. Ideally, you'd never have to use these weapons, because that means that a submarine has gotten really, really, really close. Not a range where you really want them to be, but, well, it's possible. Right now, the Kirov won't launch another sprint because I have to wait another 1 minute and 10 seconds. I can try the RBU-1000, but I don't have the range, because the range on that is only half a mile. So with that, an end to the video. I hope I've given at least some overview of all the different weapons types in the game. Again, it's something that you can talk about for a very long time. All the different ways that you can engage another warship, an aircraft-to-aircraft fight. There are a lot of different types of weapons, and I highly encourage you to just try them out. See what they do. Sometimes they'll work, sometimes you go, hold on, why did that not work? Read the unit card, it definitely helped me a lot, and I still make mistakes. Sea Power is a complex game, so give yourself some time to learn it. Thank you for watching. If you have any additions, corrections, questions, leave those down below in the comments. And good luck on the high seas of Sea Power.